Many questions surrounding those franchise tag running backs. Where do things stand right now with Saquon Barkley and the Giants?
Well, Field, I think everybody's taking a little bit of a hiatus right now. Now, this is going to intensify, I would imagine, shortly after the July 4th holiday. Keep in mind, like we said, the deadline is July 17th. So there's going to be some activity leading up to that deadline to try to get a deal done for Saquon Barkley. And the two sides have not been able to make a whole lot of progress. We heard Saquon talk 8 days ago about the fact that if he needs to sit out time this season, he will. He's not going to do a deal unless it's a fair deal for both sides. They've been unable to approach that territory. And I think really the question is, what is a fair deal for a player like Saquon Barkley, who's meant as much to the Giants offense and team as he has? And especially during an offseason where we've seen them go ahead and pay Daniel Jones top money for a quarterback, where they've paid Dexter Lawrence top money for a defensive tackle, but they haven't paid the best player on their football team because the market at the running back position is so flat and even depressed. Yeah. It's a real interesting quandary. Both sides will have the next month to try to work something out. And I would imagine as we get close to that July 17th deadline, that will spur some type of activity and action.
Schefter, to further illuminate just how suppressed that running back market is, we showed you the most guaranteed money for a running back. It was Christian McCaffrey. That deal was signed 4 years ago, Mina. Things have not changed much since 2019. But how important is Barkley to the identity of this Giants team going forward?
Well, to put his impact in perspective, last year, Field, the Giants faced the third most stacked boxes in the NFL, ninth most single high coverage, cover 1, cover 3. Now, some of that has to do with Daniel Jones himself being a threat to run and what he does, but I would argue a lot of it had to do with the presence of Saquon Barkley, the fact that defenses knew he was the most dynamic playmaker they had. Part of the reason I've been so excited to watch this Giants offense this season is with the addition of some speed on the field, Darren Waller at tight end, Jalen Hyatt in the draft. One would think that they would face more diverse coverages, more of those too high shells that give running backs tastier looks underneath. But if Saquon Barkley doesn't play, he won't get to benefit from those. So my hope is that both sides can come to a resolution soon.
MK, you hit the nail on the head with what you talked about with those other guys. There are certain positions, right, that we see in this market, like Schefter just talked about, especially the running back spot where you're trying to figure out value. And individually, when you talk about what Saquon means to this team, there's an artist called I Love Memphis. He made a hit song called Hit the Quan. The New York Giants better hit the Quan and give him some qualm. Because if they want this offense and Daniel Jones to take a step forward, Saquon Barkley needs to be the running back. Daniel Jones benefited more from having a dynamic running back in the NFL last year than anybody in the league. Brian Daboll did a hell of a job. And Daniel Jones did a really good job with his legs and athleticism and pushing the ball down the field when he needs to. I think back to that Vikings game when he had a great throwing game, but everybody did against the Minnesota Vikings. You benefit from having 26 at running back. And when I say you, that's every other skill position player on this team because he dictates how defenses have to play you, like Mina just pointed out with the single high safety coverage. So they better get this figured out if they want to take a step forward from where they were last year.
And let's say for a moment that they can't get it figured out, right? And let's say for a moment, and let's fast forward, Saquon Barkley is not there for the opener. And I know we're getting ahead of ourselves. Who's playing running back for the Giants on opening day? Is it Matt Breida? Is it Gary Brightwell?
Yeah.
Who's playing running back for the Giants on opening day if Saquon Barkley isn't signed and he decides not to show because he doesn't have a long-term deal? Now, that's a lot of money to pass on. If you divide $10.1 million by 17, I don't know that Saquon would be willing to skip one of those paychecks, but he talked about the fact that he's not showing up until he has a long-term deal, so we'll see how that plays out.
Schefter made a great point. I want to point out one other thing. You have the luxury to do this when you're Andy Reid, because Patrick Mahomes will compensate for that, and you can see if Pacheco turns out. This ain't one of them situations with Daniel Jones. You know he needs Saquon Barkley to have success.
This is a conversation we can continue. I do want to make note that I did not have Hit the Quan on my bingo card today for NFL Live, so I'm glad that we got that in. We are off to a rousing start here on NFL Live.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.